Sebring here, and this is your live coaching call. And I just wanted to connect with you today because I just love showing up here for you and giving you, some anchors. So some things, tools, and steps and strategies, and to anchor into the dating process and on this journey to finding your soulmate. Because what happens is, if you don't have an anchor, something to root you into what you're doing, it's really easy to get off track, right? And so I have a lot of women that I've been talking to recently, and I hear so much about attracting narcissists and about attracting emotionally unavailable men. And I know that affects all of us, and it certainly has affected me. And so I wanted to again talk one more time about this topic about narcissist and emotionally unavailability, because it seems to be a main source of problems for most of the women that are single. So if you are on this call, I would love for you to say hi to me really quick by giving me a thumbs up or a like so that I can connect with you and we can interact on this call. And because I wanted to give you more solid, concrete details about what this really means and how you can stop attracting narcissists and emotionally unavailable men. Hi, Terry. Nice to see you here. Thanks for being here. And so I know on these calls, I like to give you a lot of not superficial, because nothing I do is superficial, but a lot of effective, quick little dating tips so that you can quickly get in there and see some changes. But today I wanted to go a little bit deeper and give you some deeper content so that you can start to understand the process and the reasons why that we all do attract people that are not emotionally available. And it usually comes from, hi, Reese. Nice to see you. Hey. And so I wanted to talk about what emotional unavailability really is. That's hard to say. And so it's basically, you can just break it down as somebody that's not emotionally available or emotionally present, and they're not able to be emotionally focused for very long periods of time on what you're saying or what you're doing. So they have a hard time staying focused and present to whatever's going on. Even the really nice guys, great guys that you will date, you will find this. They will, you'll get involved, you'll start dating, and then all of a sudden there's some distance, they'll withdraw. And I know that you can relate to this because it's happened to me, it's happened to all of us, and you've probably done it yourself. You'll get close to a guy and then you'll maybe sabotage it because you'll start to get fearful, right? Because you don't know how to go past that point to become more emotionally available. And maybe you do. Maybe you've tried different things like overgiving or oversharing in an attempt to grow closer to a man, and then that pushes him away. And so we want to understand where emotional unavailability comes from. So when it comes from really the very beginning, it comes from infancy, because in the very beginning, when we're born, we learn that our value and our value in life and our worth is externally sourced. So our parents, our caretakers, whoever raises us, teaches us that when we do good, then they give us, they acknowledge us. And so we learn right away that our approval and our value and our sense of self-worth is external. So we actually go through our whole life thinking that we need the attention of others, and we actually crave it and thrive on it by people acknowledging us, validating us, giving us value. And when we don't get that, we get really triggered because we want that, because we've been trained from a very young age that our sense of value and self-worth is external. So doesn't that make sense, right? So it makes perfect sense if you think about it from a child's mind. So then you fast forward, we're adults now, right? And so this would explain why we attract a narcissist. And I'm saying we, because I've done it too, because I have been a narcissist and I've been emotionally unavailable. And so I really understand why that is, why I was, and I'm going to explain it to you in a step-by-step so that you can go deeper in this call and also understand it. So our self-worth was externally established, and that was done by our caretakers. So we now are looking for anybody and everyone to give us approval, right? Especially in dating and men. So, and that would explain why you attract narcissists, because you love the attention. You love the attention that you get from men that maybe are not emotionally available, but they love to give women attention because they're not really available. So what they're doing is they're pouring on their affection, attention initially, because they've learned to they love the reaction that they're getting from you. So basically, in the beginning, it's like a match. They're giving you attention. You're loving it. You're responding to it. You're like, wow, this feels really good. And then when they back up, you're like, wait a minute, I want more of that. So then you start to pursue. And so that's because we're looking for that external approval, right? We're looking, and then all of a sudden we don't hear back from them, and our worth is in question. And we start to question our value. And then our confidence level just goes straight down, and we start to go into a spin, right? We withdraw into our mind and start thinking about why I didn't call, what I said, what I did. And in that process, we become emotionally unavailable because we're still looking for our approval to be externally given to us by these narcissistic men and emotionally unavailable men. But guess what? They don't know how to be emotionally available either. So they come in, they like you, and things are going well. And then all of a sudden they start to have feelings, and fear gets triggered because they, again, don't know how to go to that next level. They don't have the skills. They don't have the tools. And so there's a real problem, right? There's a real disconnect. So no matter how hard you try, whatever you do, you cannot go chasing after a man to try to explain all of this to him and walk him through that fear, because then you get in fear and you back up, and it's a cycle that keeps perpetuating itself. And that's where the real problem is. So we learn that our source of love is external. And so we never really learn to love ourselves in the process. We're always looking for someone else to approve of us, to give us love, to give us the validation. And so it could turn out and look like, I'm using one of my clients as an example. And so maybe your parents were extremely together. Maybe they were career people, and you had a lovely home, and you're like, no, my parents were good. They showed up for me. But maybe you became an overachiever because your parents were focused on doing all of these other things. And that would cause you to constantly try to do more, do better, be the best you could, be a perfectionist, so that you could get their attention, get their love, because that love is externally given, and you need more and more and more of that. And the less you perceive you're getting, the more insecure you feel. And so the harder you will try to get that. And then that's maybe acting out. And then there's the other version of, is that if your parents aren't emotionally available for whatever reason, and I'm going to tell you why this happens, then you might just really withdraw inside. So you could become an introvert or an extrovert, depending on what you were exposed to. And so I have a little diagram here that I made for you to help you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So I want to put this up here, and let me get a pen, because this is really important that you understand. So here we have, if you look really closely, you have your parents. If you think about it, your father, it has a little emotionally unavailable child that lives inside of him because he never got all of his emotional needs met by his parents that were busy or non-existent. And so this is just a man with a wounded inner child. And then you've got mom over here. She's got the same problem. She's got the adult mom, but she's got this little wounded inner child in her that really never got her emotional needs met. So then you've got you're down here. And how could you possibly get your needs met when you're a child, when both your parents have never really learned and were not, all of their emotional needs weren't met? And so you basically were being raised by emotional teenagers or emotional children in adult bodies. So you can imagine what that's like for the little inner you to be raised by an emotionally unavailable person, because, let's face it, we weren't raised by Christ or Buddha, and our parents did the best they could. This is not about making parents wrong or right. It's about understanding what happens to all of us. And then we grow up. We don't get a course in, advanced life skills. We don't get taught about how to be emotionally available. We learn the hard way, but we continue to act out and perpetuate the same treatment that we got. And it's so familiar to us that it's as if that's just the way it is. But that's not just the way it is. It's just the way that you've allowed it to be, because it's a pattern, it's just a habit. And it starts when you're so young, before you have the critical thinking skills before you're 6 years old to really understand this whole cycle that you're in. So you start to create patterns of behavior. And then, of course, you take it into your dating life and a man says something to you and you have a strong reaction to it, or you're attracted to the bad boys because you're attracted to them because they're emotionally not available. And that's an energy that you're familiar with, because when you were a child, your parents weren't emotionally available because they were dealing with their own inner child that never really got their needs met. So you can see how this pattern is perpetuated ever since you're a child. And so what do we do about it, right? What do we do about this pattern that's perpetuated? Well, the first step is always awareness. When you have awareness, then healing accompanies that. So just being aware that it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility to heal. So it's your responsibility to get in there and become more emotionally available to yourself and discover how amazing you are, because the source of love that you want is within you. It's been there all along. But in your search for the man and for the perfect partner and for your soulmate, you're constantly looking outside of yourself, and you're looking at him to the same way that you look to your parents in a way. Please love me, define who I am, give me what I need, and then I'll be happy. But the thing is that a man looks at that and he's like, I can't make you happy. You don't even seem happy to begin with, because he's dealing with his own inner child that's going, I don't even know how to be intimate. Nobody taught me how to be intimate. My parents weren't intimate with me. And so that's the pattern. We've got this emotional immaturity going on. And it's not your fault, by the way. I was very emotionally immature, even though I'm an adult, I'm a grown woman. When I went into my first marriage, I was emotionally so immature. I would act out. I was very reactionary. I would explode. I was volatile. And where did that come? Come from my mother. She was the hot-headed Italian. Okay, so that makes sense. That's how she coped. And so I thought that was normal. And I've told you all before on these calls that I yell because I care. That was actually a joke with me and my kids. And, it's not that funny, actually, when you think about it. That is the way that I showed affection, because that's what my mother did to me. And you can see how dysfunctional that would be, right? That didn't sit well in that relationship. It caused a lot of dysfunction for me. And so I had to learn a new way to show up. I had to start to figure out why. Why did I have that need to be defensive? Because I was under attack as a child. My mother had to discipline me, right? So there's a reason why I felt defensive, because I did want to defend myself when I was younger. And so I have to learn new coping skills. And so that's what I am encouraging all of you to do, is to take this path that you're on to finding your soulmate in this journey, and recognize that it's going to require some intimacy on your part. Into me, I see. You have to become intimate with what's going on with you. And if you want to advance, so if you're single and you want to be in a relationship and you haven't succeeded at that in the last couple of years, then I would say, and I say this with love, and I really do, that it's you. It's not the men, it's you, because you're the common denominator in everything. And so what I teach the women in my program is to recognize and embrace and go through a process to reconnect to your inner self. Because what happens is we have this resistance to doing that, because why? We don't feel that if we do that, well, what happens is we feel like that somebody's going to discover that we're not good enough, or we felt less than. Because here's the thing, what happens when we're, that illustration that I showed you earlier, what happens is when you're down here, if your parents aren't paying attention to you because they're dealing with their inner children, right? What happens is you start to think, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. That's what I thought. I mean, I must have been. My mom was busy. She was yelling. How would I think that I'm lovable and good enough? I would never pick that up from her. She told me she loved me, but that was irrelevant because her actions were, taking care of the other things in life that she had to take care of. So our love from our parents, our caretakers, is conditional. It has to be. They have to keep us safe. They have to have rules. They make us do things. So everything is conditional. And what you have to learn is you have to learn to be unconditional in your love. So you go into the dating process and you're sitting there across from a man and you have all these conditions because it's a learned behavior. You're sitting there in your mind ticking off all the things on your list, and that's conditioned. And what happens in that process is you're disconnecting from the man in front of you because you're in your mind, you're thinking instead of being present. But you can't be present because there's a disconnect because you really haven't connected with yourself, where your real source of love and wisdom and innate intelligence really is. And so you're still looking outside of yourself for your approval, for recognition, for value, for validation, and for confidence. That's another big thing. Where does confidence come from? It doesn't come from knowing how to flirt and smile. I mean, I can teach you how to do that like that, you know. It comes from recognizing and having a relationship with yourself. That's why I am so confident. And I don't say that to boast. I'm confident because I have had the courage to look deep within and examine those very things that I spent 40 years plus trying to run from myself, because I was afraid that I was good enough, that I wasn't smart enough, all of those enough things. And when I finally had the courage to look inside, what I found out was that I am worthy. I am good enough. And those were just some unconscious, incorrect thinking that I had taken on as a child in order to protect me from this truth that I thought that I wasn't lovable. And so there's a wall of unconscious fears right in between you and the man you want. And as soon as you get close to him, that wall comes up because it wants to keep you safe, right? These unconscious beliefs, but it's keeping out all the love that you want. And so it's so critical to understand that the process and the journey to your soulmate is the most incredible, the most rewarding experience you will ever undertake. But it does require you to become and start to be more intimate with yourself. And the fear that comes up when you go to do this is like, I don't want anybody to know that I'm really not good enough, or maybe it won't happen. And so you use these rationalize, right? You rationalize why you don't want to do the work because it's too expensive, or I don't have time, or it doesn't work. All these are rationalized. Your mind makes up to keep you stuck, right? But there's a payoff for listening to that. It's keeping you stuck and safe. Sure, you'll save money and time, but guess what? It's just hiding something that's really going on, something much deeper, and that's it, that somebody might find out that you're really worthless. And that's the thing you have to get to. That's the thing behind the thing behind the thing. That's that unconscious negative belief that's kind of your blind spot. You're like, what is that? And then every time you try to get close to a man, it sabotages you. And the more times you sabotage yourself, the less confident you are. And so it's a vicious cycle, and it's so hard to step out of without support, without guidance, and without somebody who can guide you through that process. And that's what I do. That's what I specialize in. The women in my program right away learn how to recognize these impulses. They start to come up, and these impulses are your intuition trying to get your attention, that there's a part of you that is really wounded, that needs some healing. And I have this saying that I say, and I know you've heard me say it, is when somebody steps on your toe, it hurts. But if it hurts an hour later, it was already infected. So what you have is a bunch of little infections running that you need to go back in and address and heal them so that you can bring the whole package to the table. And when you do that, when you learn that the source that you want, of the source of love that you want is within, oh, you're going to be so desirable to a man because he's looking for that too. He's looking for a woman who understands her worth, because a man wants a woman that values herself because it's a reflection of him. He wants to introduce you to his friend, to his family. And he needs to do that with a woman who has a high self-worth. So if your view of yourself is lower than what he perceives it of his own belief of himself, he's not going to see you as a match, a worthwhile partner, because he's looking for at least somebody, if not on his level, higher than his perception. Because what we do is we lift each other up when we have this healthy self-esteem. And self-esteem, as you've heard me say, is a perception, right? It's a perception. It can go up and down with your actions. So you get out there and you start dating, maybe it doesn't connect right away, and your perception of your self-worth goes down just based on some actions. Maybe you over contact. Maybe you are jumping into intimacy physically too soon. And that leaves you feeling really vulnerable. And so your self-worth takes a dive, right? And then your confidence goes down. And then you show up on the next date, you don't have any confidence, you don't have any boundaries. So then this man doesn't see you as a viable partner because he wants a woman who's rooted. When I started this call, I was talking about giving you some meat to the stew, some deeper coaching that can help you understand so you can root into some knowledge about what it is that you need to do in order to have what you want. And so when I say you need some more knowledge, what I want to preface that with is that there's tons of information on the internet, right? And you hear from tons of coaches and they're all teaching about dating and how to be in a relationship and all of this. But here's the key. Knowledge is useless unless you can take action. So knowledge is useless unless you can take action on it. You need the application of the knowledge. That's empowerment. That's what I teach. You need to empower yourself with all the knowledge that you've learned. But how do you do that? Okay, it's a process. You need to learn that process because unless you empower yourself, you're not going to get very far. And that's why you're still stuck in these unconscious negative beliefs that you're not worthy, you're not lovable. And so you need to apply, take action. When you take action, things start to move. You pick up all this momentum. You start to see results in your life. And then that gives you so much confidence because you see it's working. And then from that place, you keep moving forward. But you need structure, you need guidance, and you need someone who has done that work and can pull you from where you are to the other side. That's what you need. You need somebody to help you push you through all this fear and resistance. So the resistance comes in because there's so much resistance for women that I talk to because they're just afraid. Again, it's all fear-based that somebody's going to find out that you're really not worthy or not lovable. And so it's just really getting clear on this, where our emotional unavailability comes from, why we attract narcissists, and why we become narcissistic at times, and we don't even realize that we're the ones that are being emotionally unavailable. And I would say if you're single and you want to be in a relationship, there's a part of you that is emotionally unavailable. And so I know that's a broad statement to make, but I'm making it from my own experience and from the women I coach, because there's a part of us that we keep compacted in a little box. We don't want anybody to get in there. And that's our box of self-imposed limiting beliefs. And we need to take the lid off that box and shine some light on it so that we can discover that you really are available. And you really are, you really have the ability to be emotionally available. You just have to take those action steps that lead to your expected end result. You're your soulmate. So it's a process. So any process is a series of steps that lead to your expected end result, your desires. So you have to get in the process though, right? You've got to get in the game. You've got to commit to the process. And the commitment, the energy of commitment is a whole nother topic that we could talk about. It's interesting when you haven't had a commitment, you haven't been in a relationship in a while, and you go try to work on this energy of commitment throws up so much fear and makes you want to back up. But that's the thing you don't want to do. You want to lean into the commitment. You want to push through that fear, because when you plant your feet on the ground and you make a commitment to do something, everything lines up in your favor to do that. It's when you hesitate and you take your foot off the gas that you lose momentum and you start to sink down and you get stuck in these emotional ruts. And then now we go back to the beginning of this coaching call. Now you're back in being emotionally unavailable because you're not willing to look at what's really going on because you're afraid there's something wrong with you, but there's nothing wrong with you. And now you're up in your head and you're going back through the whole process. You have no support. You have nobody guiding the process. You don't even know that you're stuck because you're unconscious. Did you see what a mind twist that is? And then it's exhausting. Another part of this is it's really physically, emotionally, spiritually draining to be stuck on this treadmill over and over and over. You don't have any energy. It's like you can't catch a breath, and you don't even feel like you can do anything because you're constantly thinking about all of this, and it drains you emotionally. It's like you're leaking energy. Imagine yourself floating in space in a spacesuit, and there's little bubbles coming out of your spacesuit. You're just floating around leaking all this energy, and you're leaking it out of those areas that you need to grow in. So as soon as you start to grow in those areas, you plug that hole and you start to power back up. So it's such a beautiful process when you discover how amazing you are, how beautiful you are, how unique you are, and how authentic you can be when you can connect to yourself. And so that's what I'm teaching in my program. It's starting on September 12th, right after Labor Day. Ladies, the fall is upon us. I know it may be warm today, but we've already starting to see the glimpse of fall. And I am so excited about these women that I'm going to be traveling with and taking them through this incredible journey of self-discovery that leads to your soulmate. It's so exciting for me because I've seen so many women just step out of it. Even the women that I'm working with right now. I have one woman who had a broken heart when she called me, and she was so upset. The man that she'd been seeing for 3 years, he just decided that he was interested in another woman, broke up with her, and was already seeing someone else. So you can imagine how heartbroken and crushed she was. She couldn't get out of bed. She didn't want to do anything. She just was like, hunkered down. And within a couple of weeks, I helped her turn herself around. And she just posted in our group that she's now going out. She's like going out, feeling really good about her choice of the path that she's on. She's re-empowered, and she realizes that she wasn't emotionally available to that man. And he left her for another woman because she recognizes that she really could never talk about her feelings. And she realizes through that painful experience, that was the big catalyst for her to change her behavior so that she can have something different. So it's so exciting. Even though she's had this painful experience, it was a wake-up call for her never to do that again. And so with my guidance, she is now going out, she's embracing life, she's got a social schedule, and she's determined to make this happen for her. And I know that it's going to, and I'm going to be right there alongside her as she goes through this process. And that's why it's exciting for me. It's not only about finding a man, it's about finding yourself in the process. And that's just the most rewarding, fulfilling work that you're ever going to do. And when you do that, a man will see how amazing you are when you do. So it starts from within. It's an inside job, but the outside, it changes your whole life. So if you're interested in learning more about this process that I teach and about my program, PM me right now. Send me a personal message on Facebook because my appointment book is so full. I've been talking to women nonstop, and I want to make sure that I have your contact information so we can set up a time to talk. And I can see if this program is a fit for you, right? You have to resonate with the work. And so I would just want to say hi to a couple of the ladies that just joined me. Hi, Susanna. Hi, Cindy. I love you too. Hi, Rick. Thanks for being here. Clearing generational patterns are the key. That's right. Rick just made a comment. Yes, but understanding where they come from and why we do what we do is the first step in healing. And that's a journey that's well worth taking. And so, hi, Reese. Are you inspirational like that inside job? Thanks. Yeah, it always is. Even in a relationship, I'm in this beautiful relationship with Michael, and I don't depend on him to meet my needs externally. I mean, it's wonderful that I have an amazing relationship with such an incredible man, but I recognize and I know that my happiness is up to me. And we have this little saying, I'll take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. So it's my job as an emotionally mature, highly functional woman to take care of my emotional needs that come up, my feelings of inadequacy, my fears, my self-esteem. It's up to me to nurture and love and hold clear boundaries so that I feel safe inside. Because when I feel safe inside, then I can show up for Michael as a fully empowered woman. And that's what he wants. That's what all men want. They don't know what to do with a woman who doesn't know how to be empowered. It's like they don't know how to help you. I mean, you've met a man that is disempowered and maybe he doesn't know how to fully step into his masculine. It's like, how can you help him with that? You can't. He has to do that. But let me tell you what, when a man meets a woman that has that level of skill, you'd be surprised how quickly he could step up into it and meet you there. Because you create this space, because you have the skill set to create this beautiful space of love for a man that can naturally just easily step into it, because men, they want to be men. We just have to let them be men, right? And so I hope this was helpful. Does anybody have any questions? I would love to answer any questions you have. Do I see some questions, ladies? Hi, Terry. How's it going for you? No questions today. Yeah. So I guess we're going to end the call. It was just so lovely to see you all here. I love connecting with you this way. I hope that this was really helpful and nurtured you and gave you some insights into what could be blocking you. And well, put your hand over your heart and give yourself some love right now, Terry. That's what you need to do. You need to put your hand over your heart and just connect with yourself and tell yourself, I love you, I love you, I love you. That's what I want you, all of you to do, because when you do that, it feels so good to love yourself. So you don't have to wait for a man to do that. Everything that you need, you already have the capacity to give yourself right now. So take action to feel better faster by loving yourself right now. Okay. I'm going to give you another little tip before we go. I want you to get a picture. This is my little inner child. See her? That's a picture of me when I was 5 years old on my little pony. Okay. This little girl thought that she wasn't lovable, that she wasn't worth, wasn't smart enough, wasn't good enough. But look at that little girl. What little girl in the whole world that looks like that could ever be not lovable? Do you see why it's so important to connect with like a picture of yourself? I'm going to encourage all of you to get a picture of the little you and put it out, because when I look at her and I see that and I go, that's crazy. This little girl is so cute and so lovable, and you have a little inner child in you. So if you have that little tool, a picture of you that you can connect with, you can start to take action to really connect with yourself, to connect to that part of you that really did believe and still does believe that you're not worthy or you're not lovable. So do yourself this favor, take action to get this tool by getting a little picture of you in a frame and putting it where you can see it so that you can connect with that part of you that really is longing for love. So you can give her that love right now. You have the capacity to do that. So I hope that inspired you to take action, and I would love to see your pictures of your little inner children. So you can post them in my Facebook group or email them to me. I would just love to see the pictures of you as a little girl, so that I know that you're taking action and doing that. Little accountability here. And so good, Terry. Thank you. I want to see your picture. Make sure you send it to me. If you can't get access to it, just take your camera. If your mom has it or somebody has it in a frame, just take a picture, have somebody take a picture of it and text it to you, somebody in your family. So there's always a way to get those pictures. I know some of you say you don't have a picture. Find one on the internet that looks like you as a child and print it out and call that your inner child. So don't avoid yourself. Make sure you do take action to do what I'm suggesting. You won't believe the power that it has when you connect to yourself in that way. It's very deep and it's very intimate. And that's what I'm teaching is intimacy skills, right? You want to be intimate with a man? Well, let's get intimate with yourself, right? Into me, I see. And you know what? Not so bad in there. It's quite fabulous. So give it a shot. Okay, ladies, lots of love to you. I'm just sending you a big, big virtual hug. I would wrap myself around this computer and hug you if I could. Okay, now I'm being goofy, but we have to temper all of this heavy talk with a little levity, because it can feel really heavy sometimes when you discover some truths, right? It can kind of sting a little bit, but keep going. Keep going. You're on the right track if you're resonating with this. So, all right, ladies, lots of love. Bye-bye.